like when Thanos drank the elixir. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I'm orgasming just fine, thank you. My name is Shahir Dow.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Friendship.
You say that like we don't have one.
I said that like Mortal Kombat 2.
Or Sauron.
Or I guess, yeah.
Friendship
again.
Frodo.
I wonder if the fact that you're orgasming just fine, by the way, is due to the elixir that you and Thanos shared.
Well, and for listeners at home who cannot see what it is we do, I looked Matt straight in the eye as I said that, and I smiled the entire time. Because
like the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, because that's what we do here. It is episode 549, by the way.
Okay.
And we are
but who's keeping track?
I am because I know that we're coming up to episode 550. I did put an Instagram poll out like a while back saying what should we do to celebrate, and I think I gave 3 options. One was ice cream. The second was champagne. And the third one was a celebratory screening of Barton Fink.
Jesus Christ. At first I was, but now I think we should figure out if ice cream or champagne win. There have to be films named both champagne or ice cream. There have to be.
There's a Blackpink song called Ice Cream.
Yeah, but that's not a film. We just reviewed the song Ice Cream.
Supernova.
Yeah.
By Oasis.
We just reviewed those 2 music videos. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what we do.
Right.
Yeah. You don't want to do Barton Fink, one of the greatest movies ever made?
It would be fine. I was just saying if the others won.
Yeah. Have you seen Barton Fink?
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, it's great. And I remember the Simpsons meme where Milhouse has a birthday party and they decide to watch Barton Fink and they run off going, Barton Fink. That was actually what was in my mind as I did the Instagram poll. Just a little peek behind the curtains. We are recording 2 episodes in one night, and this was a very surprising thing for me. I did not intend it for this to be this way, but these 2 films actually make a fantastic double feature.
It's odd that they do. What 2 films? The other one we'll be recording right after this that you'll hear a week later due to the magic of time is Sorry, Baby.
Sorry, Baby, the Invicta film.
And wow, yeah, what a weird double feature this was. I mean, weird, but also like poignant, like connecting. So like enjoy. I guess what we're saying is we're gonna set it up real good this week, and we're gonna knock it down next week.
That's right. And yeah, join us along. I think we've gotten a couple of emails saying how nice it is to actually be doing these like what they called off-season episodes.
Sure.
Which is correct. A fun fact the New York Times reported about this week or last week was that the Hollywood blockbusters were the worst lowest performing blockbusters in American history since 1981.
Yikes on bikes.
And you can see the graph here of how this year performed. Even films like Superman did not. Superman certainly was a large contributor to that tally. But
and for the audio listeners, which are all of you, Shahir showed me a graph where this year's was lower by a decent amount. So it is a curious thing that people aren't going to the movies as much for summer. But I also think that it is odd to say Superman didn't feel like an event. Superman didn't feel like an event because it's superheroes are no longer an event, and also people have less money. And if you're going, I don't agree with this. I think everyone listening who's listened for a long time knows that this is not a thing that I buy into. But one could argue that if you're going to spend money on visual media, it is much cheaper to do it at home for relatively the same experience. So you can't really blame folks who don't have a ton of disposable income kind of just not going. It's also like, how can movies become events for us and in people who follow like the industry and maybe things that are not the most blockbustery of blockbusters, right? Like those can become events.
Certainly.
But when's the last cinematic event? Barbenheimer?
Yeah, I would say that is kind of correct. In this year, it was Lilo and Stitch, according to the New York Times. Previous years, it was Deadpool and Wolverine. Inside Out 2, oddly, was $1 billion blockbuster.
But you know what's interesting about all that? Those are good movies. They made a lot of money. Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, let's just say they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call them events. Like no one was, other than how much money it made, no one was talking about the live action Lilo and Stitch. Mm-hmm. Like it was just, that's the thing that it looks really good for kids to watch. Yeah. Like cool.
I think you're absolutely correct that Barbie and Oppenheimer were the last major event. Prior to that, I would argue Avengers Endgame.
What's opening around Odyssey? I wonder if we can kind of get a little double feature going with Odyssey when it drops.
Odyssey, and you know what would be great is if they made a movie of Abe's Odyssey at the same time,
right?
And there was just Odyssey squared.
Why not?
Look, I am a professional filmmaker.
Someone hire this man in any capacity.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, before we get started, you could email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or you could message us on Blue Sky, or you could even leave a review on Spotify or the Apple II things and like do all the stars and all the +1s and thumbs up. Ooh, YouTube.
Yeah,
subscribe to us on YouTube. Like our friend Ryan did. Ryan, whom I didn't want to blow up their spot last week. It was the awesome dude who came up to me after my panel at PAX West on Snake Eater. And Ryan wrote in, so I'm going to read that email right now. He says, "Hey, gents, I had the pleasure of meeting Matthew earlier this week at PAX after a stellar panel, no less. Thank you, Ryan. And I wanted to finally make good on my threat to email, at the very least to say thank you for all you do and reiterate what I said to Matt. If it weren't for you guys, I may have never watched First Cow or Jiu-Jitsu."
Those are such deep cuts. You definitely listen to the podcast if you watch those.
If those are the two, then you know it. Ryan continues, I've had 100 answers to questions you've asked on the pod over the years. Can't remember any of them. Don't be like me, kids. Email the pod today. So I'll go with the last episode I listened to, K-pop Demon Hunters. No love for the, in my own opinion, overarching theme of embracing your inner demons, ? There's probably a better way to put that, but I very much bought the treatment and teared up at the quote, "We broke into a million pieces and we can't go back. Now I'm seeing all the beauty in the broken glass." It's still at a young adult level, sure, but it was also successful enough that I wouldn't say the movie is slight or on par with the Minecraft movie, honestly. I enjoyed it, but it didn't really have a message. Also, welcome to YouTube. 8 years ago, ? Oh, well, subbed. Regarding the particularity of which videos the algorithm decides to bless, I used to co-host a now defunct movie podcast with a friend. And out of our 200 plus episodes, some of them good, the one with the most hits is still the one we did for Steven Seagal's 1997 thriller Fire Down Below. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Again, thanks for being my movie pod of choice. Maybe the biggest compliment I can give is that listening to you guys has often been the impetus to go out and create something of my own. And like I mentioned to Matt, you may even be partially to blame for Jonathan the Blade and I collaborating on more than one occasion, and another to come. So in a way, there's a little podcast children of yours running around out there. I should not have started writing this email at 1 a.m. Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
That is, Ryan, by the way, that is the best time to write emails, and it's the best time to send them immediately after you've written them, with no forethought whatsoever.
Don't schedule it.
Yeah.
Because you'll change it. You'll think about, no, just hit the button.
I mean, the whole plot of Jerry Maguire is based on the fact that he sent out an email in the middle, or he sent out a packet in the middle of the night.
And what happened to him?
He became Jerry. He was showing the money.
You showed the money. Thank you. I was teeing you up for that. I was glad you got there.
Not eventually, but you know.
Ryan, I 1,000% agree with your take on K-pop Demon Hunters. I think that that line in particular and that song is very, very poignant, and it does work on the young adult level. But I feel like the movie presents itself in ways that can make even those types of things really feel pertinent for adults as well. To go along for the ride. So I do agree with that.
I had a screening of K-pop Demon Hunters at my office for, I think 10 kids, ranging from the age of 7 through to 11 or 12, I think. And it was an awesome time. And I agree actually that I don't think the messaging kind of like completely resonates with me, but the performance of the actual song in the moment that you've described, Ryan, is really like incredible. And I 100% feel like I would tear up if I saw that at the right moment in my life. I think we may have been a little light on the movie to begin with because we saw it early in the summer. It is now, I would consider, in that conversation that we just had about why Hollywood blockbusters haven't done well, K-pop Demon Hunters is the outlier and is the most important movie of the summer.
Yeah.
It is without a doubt. Like all of those kids that came to watch the movie had seen it like at least 5 times beforehand.
Yeah.
They sing it, they quote it. I'm buying merch for all their birthday parties as it goes, as we go on through the year. They are doing hairstyles. It's going to be the Halloween costumes of the year. It is without a doubt, in my opinion, the most important movie of the year thus far.
I bought the vinyl.
You bought the vinyl?
Yeah, it comes out in November or something.
Oh, wow.
I pre-ordered it.
That is commitment.
Yeah,
I gotta say.
I know. Because I like things that I like on physical media, and until they release a 4K disc of that thing, that's the closest that I can get to it. So there we go.
I'm sure there's going to be a sequel coming in the works right now.
There's 2 sequels in the works and a live action.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to do friendship first. directed by one Andrew DeYoung and featuring Tim Robinson. Now, this is a very strange thing I want to say before we get into the synopsis here. This is a movie that features Paul Rudd and Kate Mara, arguably two, pretty reasonable film stars. But the draw card, I think, for both of them and for everyone watching the movie is Tim Robinson. Are you a fan of Tim Robinson?
I've seen some stuff, but he's I not for any reason. I feel like I think you should leave, and his comedy is just something that I've never found. Does that make sense? Like, I know he exists. I know his face. I know the hundreds of memes and gifs that are with him in a hot dog suit.
Yeah.
But I don't follow it. Like,
I've watched the show?
I've watched one episode of the show. Maybe I couldn't tell you a remembered thing about it. It has nothing to do with liking or disliking.
Yeah.
There is too much media, and I cannot keep up with every possible facet of it.
I found, I blew through I Think You Should Leave. And it's a very peculiar sense of humor that I enjoy watching, even if not necessarily I find myself laughing at. But it is so odd at times that I kind of think back on it, and I could easily rewatch I think it's only like 6 episodes or something like that per season. The other thing that I found really comforting over the last year was I finally watched Detroiters with him and Sam Richardson. And a friend of mine, Alex, who does listen to the podcast, by the way, we had a thing going for a little while, which was Sam Richardson should be in everything. Like, Sam Richardson should be in every movie from now. He will ultimately make it better. I think this started because we were talking about who would be a better, newer version of the Naked Gun. Or of Frank Drebin in the Naked Gun, and it was Sam Richardson. And then as we kind of continued that, it was every conversation was well, Sam Richardson would be a better Jean-Luc Picard, for example, or Sam Richardson would be a better. He would just be better in everything. Everything would be better if Sam Richardson was in it. So I actually enjoy that particular brand of humor, even though I can't necessarily. I think I can fully appreciate if it doesn't land with you at all. Like it is I don't think my wife would really enjoy that sense of humor at all.
Sure.
But I'm all here for Coffin Flop.
Well, this is really outside of, again, the meme verse of it all. My first foray into his particular brand of ha-has.
Yeah.
Which the Internet Movie Database coins friendship as a suburban dad falls hard for his charismatic new neighbor.
Sure does.
That's pretty accurate.
It's not quite the same plot as I Love You, Man, but this is the second film I can think of with Paul Rudd playing an adult man trying to find friendship.
Yeah. Also, well, actually, I don't think Paul Rudd's character in this is trying to find friendship. But I will say I've seen some snarky posts or articles about this movie called "I Don't Love You, Man."
Yeah. Golf clap.
Yeah, golf clap. Very good. Very good. Yeah, so this is directed by Andrew DeYoung.
It's his first movie.
It's his first movie, which, holy shit, for your first movie, brava, I should say, out the gate. I think this movie is incredibly well made. I was doing a little bit of research before we began, and essentially, he wrote this film as well, and he wrote it for Tim Robinson to be in. It feels very, for him.
Get anybody else in this role.
And the second thing is, the way this movie is shot, I guess I'll sort of jump into my first impressions of things. You know, you kind of with Tim Robinson, you understand kind of the style of comedy you get, but the visual, the cinematography in this movie is I think swinging and hitting above its weight class in a way. I also think that was very much on purpose. The thing I was reading about was Andrew DeYoung was basically saying he wanted to shoot this movie and make it feel visually, at least, like the film The Master.
Sure, another film about existential male friendships
and charisma and people that don't know how to interact in corrupting relationships and things like that. But make it the I Love You Man of The Master, basically. That's not his words. I'm putting that bit together.
The Master of I Love You Man.
The Master of I Love You Man.
Yeah.
And so I found that really interesting, especially after because the first thing that struck me was how really beautiful this movie looks. And I was blown away by that. I think this movie is fun. I think I had no idea what it was going into it. I didn't even know, to be perfectly honest, because all I'd seen was the yellow letter thing with the two of them looking at each other. I didn't know it was A24. I didn't know anything about it. And the second I saw A24, I was like, oh, is this going to be weird? And then it obviously was weird.
Yeah.
I really did like the way it never seemed to... everything felt connected and nothing seemed like it was an ending until the movie ended. And even that didn't really feel like a full blown ending. Like it was just like a cascading series of events that we ran out of time for by the end.
I was curious what you would have thought of the ending, given
my panache for things that aren't normally clear.
The rage at which you've displayed some of your responses.
I think because this whole movie is structured that way, I didn't mind. We'll get into that later.
I say that as well because one of my thoughts about watching this movie was that Tim Robinson is a really unique figure, a really unique cinematic figure, and a really unique, obviously, television figure as well. One that I thought would be really particularly well suited to Yorgos Lanthimos, you know, which is where this conversation about endings kind of began with us with The Lobster. Go back and listen to that episode if you can. But I really did watch this thinking, this is really this, like, I like what Andrew DeYoung did on this film. I have to say, as someone who has watched a lot of Tim Robinson's television work, I did feel like this was an extended sketch. I know that a couple of people reached out after they saw that we were doing it and said, "Oh, this is one of my favorite movie-going experiences of the year." And I wondered about the movie-going experiences, and I felt like it would be so attuned to the people who were in the audience. You know, like if you fill the room with people like me taking our wives to that movie, I think it would be, I would potentially see there would be dead silence in the theater. And I've read a couple of reviews who said that there was kind of dead silence in the movie theater. But I think if you are in tune with this particular brand of humor, and again, it is really centered around Tim Robinson. Although, you know, Paul Rudd has done this kind of comedy before, just maybe, you know, he's sort of moved on from that since his Ant-Man days. I think to me, it worked as a series of sketches. There were certainly interesting ideas here about the sort of crisis of masculinity that happens when you get older and the inability for people to find male friendships or meaningful male friendships, and the sort of the desperation that comes with it. It also reminded me, in that sense, Tim Robinson's character reminded me a lot of Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love, this sort of like pent up rage that is willing to explode at any minute because they are so repressed in their sort of like, in their behavioral insecurity that, you know, that things can just go wrong at any second. And there's a moment in this film where that involves a bar of soap where you just suddenly go, I don't know what it is I don't know what it is I'm experiencing here. And I loved it for that.
Sure. The how do I put this? The way that the air quotes friendship happens so quick and then goes away was probably the most interesting bit to me. Mm-hmm. You know, sort of diving into what sort of happens with the film. Essentially, the Paul Rudd's character of Austin, the weatherman, moves next door, and Craig, played by Tim Robinson, there's a package that's delivered to him early on, and he has to bring it over because the mailman screwed up again. Mm. And then they just like instantly become friends. And I think weirdly, Austin was just sort of looking for stuff to do. And because Craig was supposedly moving, he was just like, yeah, man, let's go do some stuff. Like wanted to hang out before
he's also encouraged by Tammy to go there. She was like, he was like, you don't know my schedule. And she's like, you're going to be right there. You know,
well, yeah, the Kate Mara character is quite interesting in this too, Tammy, because it's that actually I jumped for the very beginning. Basically, yeah. Tammy is a cancer survivor, and that seems to have been what was the family's whole life, as it often has to be, in these situations. And she seems like she's good, but also super unhappy, like with what's going on, and the way that she talks about her ex, who's a firefighter and everything. And then we eventually meet like 3 different firefighters, it seems like, by the end of it, which is so funny.
Yeah.
But the way that this movie does hold a microscope up to the ability / inability to not only make friends, but also like have basically create a deeper friendship. Mm-hmm. Like Cher, you and I have been friends for, it's what, 2010?
That's when I moved to the US. Yeah.
Okay, great. I was going to say 7. I don't know why, but I think that's because like that's when I started like grasping onto my core MTV people. That's kind of where I was gonna.
And you were like, it's been so long.
It's been so long. Yeah. But like, there's there seems to be a thing, at least in my experience of male friendships, where events or tasks are what bind you. Yep. Like, we're obviously close the way we are is because we talk every week and we do the show, and when we don't hate each other, we love each other.
Yeah, sure.
But I've found that many of my male friendships have been based more on like what's going on. I think I'm close to a lot of people due to that summer house thing that I used to throw. I think I'm close to a lot of people through work. I think I'm close to a lot of people through situation stuff. And now, again, some of my closest friends are also content creators, which wasn't the case, 8 years ago before I started being, actually, really, I'll say 4 years ago before I joined Nebula.
Right.
So like, I don't know if this is true for you in general when it comes to male friendship. Female friendships is different for whatever reason. I tend to like be like continue friendships that like haven't like really had much going on in them, but like 2 years later, if it's a female friend, I'll just be like jump back on board like there's nothing different.
Right.
There's a few people, but even if there's a few male friendships in that, but like then again, that's sort of like also locked in time, like college friends or that sort of thing. What's your sort of, before we start exploring the film, I'm just curious if you are the same or if it is different for you.
I mean, I've got a few different examples I can point to. One is I caught up with a friend of mine in New Zealand who I've been friends since we were, I think, 10 or 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And one thing, the feelings I have when I think about that person is I'm extremely protective of that human being. And I'm very like, that person is one of my ride or dies. And no matter what situation, if he calls up, like it's that scene in the Town where they're like, I got to go beat up some people, but I can't tell you who or why or when, but are you coming with me? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I have that kind of friendship. There's a lot of professional friendships with people whom I really like. And it's like, we sort of coalesce around our work. Right now, I think my closer friends tend to be other parents because, sure. And we have like an interesting circle where our kids are all friends and the adults seem to all be friends and have common interests and like hanging out with each other. So that's actually been really fun. I think the thing that was interesting for me watching this movie is it did remind me of this time, I want to say in New Zealand, where I met someone I was working with, another male, and I was like, I really want to be friends with this guy.
Sure. Like that's always an interesting spot.
Yeah. And I was like, I just think this dude and I would be such great friends, and it would be so awesome if we hung out and we had things to talk about, and like we have the same sense of humor and we were into the same stuff, and it did not happen.
Sure.
And I was like, there was a moment where I was like, I have no friends. And I was like, this guy is the one, I really want to be this dude's friend. And I like really, really
sure. think
he's cool and like would love to hang out and just like play video games and do like stupid stuff. And so I do remember that, and Tim Robinson's character in this, that sort of, it's interesting because I don't think he has that desperation. I think the thing that's interesting is he doesn't realize that there is a part missing in his life until it appears.
Yes, it has to be thrust in front of him to realize. And I think that's sort of a commentary on the male epidemic loneliness factor thing that seems to be honest, it sounds silly to say. I feel like it is very, very real. I think that moves people in a lot of different not so healthy directions. We're not going to get into the cause and or whatever we think that is, like where that comes from here, but the vibe of wanting to be friends with somebody so bad and having it fail is something that has happened like once or twice in my life as well. And it does suck.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is let's look at it from the flip side. Yeah. I have also been in groups where someone new comes in and you just don't click.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And obviously this movie is farcical and takes it to the extreme, but that moment when Austin invites Craig over to hang out with the boys and it just goes wrong. Like at first it's great. And then what I like about it is it shows both things. So he does two stupid things, but one makes him endeared to the group and one makes it very not endeared to the group. And whenever someone comes into your group of friends, and just rubs everyone kind of the wrong way. It's happened once or twice in my life too, and it is very awkward.
Yeah. There's definitely there's people I've come across recently, and I think that this happens when you get older now as well, which is this you are much more discerning about who you let in and who you don't let in.
Oh yeah.
And it's weird because there are just times now where I go, I don't like that person. I've got nothing against them. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to antagonize or anything, but I'm just that person is not a person for me, and I'm going to, move on from there.
Can I give you my coldest of takes of sort of a way I kind of live my life at this point? And it probably makes me sound like an asshole, but I'm used to it. Relationships, this sounds awful, and then I'll sort of soften it afterward.
Okay.
Every relationship is transactional.
Sure.
But what you hopefully get between friends and close friends is it's an odd thing to say, but your energy and your enjoyment of one another is paying for the other one's time and effort, and you're both getting something out of it. It's a good thing. It's a natural thing. It's what I wish more people had, honestly. But it is, in my opinion, intrinsically transactional. Especially as I'm older and the busiest I've ever been in my entire life, all of these relationships, the ones that I love and cherish, they all take an incredible amount of time and energy.
Yeah.
And I don't, if I'm not blown away, and it's not fair, I don't know if it's entirely fair, but if I'm not blown away, right at the beginning, I often won't, because I'm not looking for, I literally don't have time to engage in something like that all the time. So
Rolodex is full.
Kind of and that sounds like such a douchebag thing to say, but I think people can hopefully relate to that in the sense of, especially people that are getting up to be more of our age. I feel like when I was younger, I was way easier to I kind of let way more people in. It doesn't have to do with I think getting hurt. It has to do with time.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And I can only imagine even after having children, that time even gets more shrunk and crystallized. So I think you combined the things.
I think that's sort of a determining factor around all these parent friends that I've made recently, is that we are all limited time, and we all actually have an intrinsic understanding of the limitations of each other's time.
Yeah.
So it's and so what happens there is, you kind of mentioned friendships are transactional, is that in those cases, the friendships are very giving, because it's hey, I know you're really busy right now. I know you've got 3 kids to deal with, right? At the second, is there something I could do to help?
Yeah. And that's great. That's you're saying it nicer than I did, but that's what I'm saying. When a friendship works well, that's the best part, is when you both bend over backwards to help the other person out.
It is, you will notice though, when you have, I don't want to say the kids thing is the factor, but I noticed this recently, which is that I started playing golf with another friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so we were playing golf, and a third friend that came along, who's lovely, by the way, joined, and he doesn't have kids. And there was this moment where he was talking about I spent my entire Saturday reading this book, and it happened to be a book I was reading, which I have to read 10 pages at night because that's the only time I have free. And I was just oh my, you sort of get this sense of
nothing wrong with the guy, but there's a intrinsic,
and he was lovely, but it was just that, I think it's that commonality that you're also looking for.
And I think that's what I go back to. I think that my friendships are based in commonalities.
Yeah.
More often than not. I think I can count on one hand some that are just not linked truly to either my profession or my college days, right? But those are few and far between. But also, I think even then, those are linked to my dog. You know what I mean? It's.
I can imagine if you have a pet, that meeting someone who has another pet, and then realizing you guys are dealing with the same thing, and how do you cope with this thing? How do you cope with that thing?
And jumping back to the film for a second, I think that's what makes the power imbalance in this movie so interesting, because obviously Craig didn't even know he always wanted something. Austin seems like he's got that thing.
Austin's the coolest.
It falls apart. Austin is the coolest. And then when it falls apart, that kind of, you don't know what you got till it's gone kind of vibe. And then Craig just sort of implodes in many different ways. He tries to mimic what he and Austin did with other people to disastrous results. Austin and him went and picked mushrooms, and he grilled up one. He made a nice breakfast for his family, and he saw that there was recognition in that. Then he tried to do it with his son, and then just ends up eating poisonous mushrooms and vomiting in a cup in a mall.
Yeah.
He goes into the sewers with Austin, and they get into City Hall into the aqueducts, and they like smoke up there, and they're like friends. And he gets invited to a concert. Then he tries to take Tammy, his wife, on some sort of adventure, and she eventually gets lost in the aqueducts.
Yep.
And then he just goes to work.
There's a thing I wanted to do, which is actually like talk. One of the things when we started the podcast was that I was not a fan of was doing like a linear play-by-play of what happened in the movie.
Yeah.
Just because there's nothing inherently wrong with that. In fact, we just did the Movie Struck podcast. Where we did an episode on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2, The Secret of the Ooze.
I don't even know. I don't think that's out yet. I think the Turtle Month is just beginning, so maybe it's soon.
Listen to Movie Struck podcast. It was a lot of fun. And Sophia, who runs that, does a play-by-play of the movie. And it was actually really useful for us to do that because then we kind of like found interesting things as we were discussing it. And I kind of wanted to do that with Friendship because I found that for me, Friendship as a movie hung together mostly as a series of bits. And while there was some moments that like resonate, there was like an overall thematic to it and an overall like underlying psychology to what was happening. I didn't feel like the movie spoke to me much more than a series of like interesting bits that have like an underlying that have an underlying psychology to them. And I think that's what I actually like about Tim Robinson's comedy and why I quite like I Think I Should Leave, or I Think You Should Leave, is that, you know, like Adam Sandler and Punch Drunk Love, which is a bitter film, by the way. You know, that's the thing. Adam Sandler and Punch Drunk Love is a really good example of this being used to tell an interesting story. But in this, I kind of felt more that I was watching something that was kind of piecemeal, that got put together, that is sort of fun to watch if you're into this kind of comedy. But for the most part, felt like a series of bits.
Well, you can interchange it, right? Like the subject matter of male friendships and the difficulty thereof is very clear.
Yeah.
And in every skit or bit, it shows you a different oddity or a different uncomfortable situation in that regard.
Yeah.
But they are kind of interchangeable after a while. Like I know something that I did like.
Yeah.
That I say that these are, interchangeable, but like I did really like the runners that still connected throughout. Like the thing that I didn't love was like, even though from a structural standpoint, I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
The licking the toad.
Yeah.
But how that happens is he's looking for male friendship at the phone place. Yeah. He talks to the 18-year-old
boy.
And he's like, "Oh, you want to go to the bar? I'm going to check it out." He's like, "I'm 18." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Yo, but if you want anything stronger, like let me know." And that's going to be a setup. But even though this feels like a series of vignettes, it was nice that they went back to that.
Yeah.
Another thing being going back to the gun that he accidentally steals.
Accidentally breaks into someone's house and opens their drawers and steals.
Well, I think he was still holding it when he got spooked and ran out, and in this buffoonery, that's kind of, I don't think he meant to steal the gun. He's doing terrible other things.
Yeah.
I think he ran and then was like, shit.
For some reason, there's a brand of Tim Robinson's particular comedy, and it might, come from Andrew Young as well, that really makes me anxious. And that is things like dropping the torch, or I left my shoe behind, I'll get it later. It like that actually makes me really anxious because I'm someone who like overpacks and overprepares and like tries to plan for every contingency.
He loses like 3 phones in this movie.
Yeah, he loses 3 phones in the movie. And every time I was just like bundling up like a ball of like nervous energy. Or like he loses, they go into the tunnels to like do this exploring thing and he loses his torch and then he loses the phone, which
his
is
flashlight.
Like, yeah. And I was like, and every time that particular sense of comedy kind of like drives me nuts. And it's the same with the gun thing here, which is like, like as soon as he runs out of the house, and he's got the gun, that's all I'm thinking about, and it's, I don't know what it is about it, but that particular thing drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And so when you say like, he didn't mean to steal a gun, I was like, yeah, but he's clearly a moron. And
yes. I'm not saying he's not blamed for stealing the gun. I'm saying he didn't set out to steal the gun.
Yeah.
But the thing I think, and so overall I did like it. And I think that the the skit-esque nature of it with its very small tie-ins that thread together are quite fun.
Yeah.
I feel like by the end, though, it does kind of dip further into sort of like a surrealist state, whether or not it even means to. I actually think, like you were asking about the ending and how I thought about it. I don't think there's anything like up in the air truly about the ending. No. I think there's just a daydream that happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and that's the last daydream.
Yeah.
But like the way that this movie goes, especially after his wife gets lost in the sewers, everything feels weird and dreamlike from that point on.
Yeah.
He doesn't go get her. He goes to work. He freaks out at work about the mayor because now he heard that his ex-friend hated that mayor. So he freaks out at work on that mayor. Yeah. Like, again, another runner sort of connecting the things together. Felt a lot like the way that the state used to like do small transitional bits in and out of their things. Yeah. Even though those sketches were way different than everything going on here.
Yeah.
From one another. And then, but then like he gets home and there's a party and there's like 9 firefighters that could be the firefighter that his wife is sort of like kind of into.
Yeah.
And then he ruins that. And then like there's all these different sort of things, and then she leaves, but then she comes back, but then he says fuck it and really goes hard again. Like, I don't know, like it felt too dreamlike, I think, to be perfectly honest. Post Frog, there's the joke about he goes to that kid and they get a frog to lick it and get high off the poisonous venom. And it's the quote that I wrote down that I thought I was going to say at the beginning, but was like when he's about to get high and the kid has to leave, he goes, "I'm sorry, I just need to go get some Rolos and a Red Bull. It's time for you to touch God." Like, it's like this kid is like saying the most benign thing, but then saying something transcendent.
The comedy here is that you were supposed to have a transcendent moment. What you imagined was going to Subway and ordering a footlong.
But when I thought the movie got so surreal for me after that moment, I thought he was still high. I thought even though he woke up after it, in it, and whatever, like, and I know that wouldn't be like the funniest thing, but it started to feel like that. And then of course when it wasn't, I was like, oh, okay, well, okay. Like I don't even want that to happen. And this is
where, like, you know, we did Kinds of Kindness, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie. And I think The Lobster is a good example of this as well, is where a filmmaker like Yorgos Lanthimos, who is pretty extraordinary, kind of can maneuver that sensibility into something profound and into something that kind of like is more coherent than this. I actually quite enjoyed this as a series of bits. It also reminded me kind of in a weird way of like Monty Python, and, you know, like the idea of those people transitioning from television to film in this sort of hybrid way with someone like Terry Gilliam, where it was like, it's still kind of TV, but it's a little bit bigger now. And that's kind of what Monty Python did. And that's what this feels like. But, you know, I actually did quite enjoy watching this. And there were moments that I thought were really funny. There's a weird thing that makes me think that that either the film is reaching for something or it's not, and maybe misses. But also one of the other points that I want to make today is I listened to a lot of reviews of this film this week, and I read reviews, and they were all trying to sort of connect all the different narrative threads, like the frog, like the desire for male friendship, the anger and rage that comes up with that, and then the sort of loss of innocence when you realize that friend is no longer the cool person that you thought he was, like he is when he, you know, falls over in a pile of piss in a jail cell. We're being very wild here, but I actually found, when I read all of those pieces out loud, and when I looked at it, I was like, I feel like we're missing the fact that this actually just feels like an extended sort of piece of comedy from Tim Robinson. Like, I Think You Should Leave.
I think
and like to take all of those moments together and try to like combine them and find meaning within them, I felt like was a little bit of a futile task.
Here's the through line for me.
Yeah.
I overall liked watching it as well. I don't know if I would suggest everyone sort of watch it. It would have to depend on your proclivities. But the thing that I found it most interesting, especially about the male friendship element, was not just, oh, it's hard for men to make friends. Oh, it sucks when you try to be friends with someone and you can't.
Yeah.
There is a certain, I'm trying to think if I have an example of this, but it felt true to me when I saw it. The thing with Austin's toupee. It falls off in the jail cell. He helps, even though they're both really mad at each other. Craig helps him out there and then promises not to say anything, even though they're not friends and they're not getting along and whatever.
And he also helps him, later on.
And then when he literally holds up the entire party that Austin is having and shoots the gun and does whatever, and Austin dives down and his toupee falls off. He makes sure that what he does next is a distraction so none of Austin's other friends see that he is wearing a toupee.
Yeah.
It seems like a silly, trite thing, but it is played to illustrate a point that felt very true when I watched it. And that is like, I can only speak for in male friendships. It could be every friendship. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I only speak from my experiences. The way that a small thing, like no matter if you're pissed at someone, no matter if you don't even want to talk to them anymore, there'll be an element or a secret or a fact or something that you won't divulge.
Yeah.
Like that element of the friendship goes beyond whether or not you like the person anymore.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but it felt very true to me. And I think what was interesting was, even though Craig and Austin's bond was quick and then didn't go the way that Craig wanted, weirdly, even though Craig has imploded his entire life that seems to be going better, but he couldn't get over Austin's rejection, the wink that Austin gives him at the end as sort of a thank you for not doing this and this horrible thing that you just did kind of locks them into what is essentially that level of friendship, which might not even be friendship at all. It might weirdly be something bigger, even though it's nothing is constant.
Yeah.
And I think that's a series of events and a series of human interactions that I know feels correct. I know I've felt once or twice in my life, if not more, but you don't often see that in movies either. So the exploration that's where it ends, the ending actually really did work for me.
Okay.
And it was because of that. It does get surreal and weird and whatever, and that's fine. But it's seemingly to me very clear what was actually happening and what wasn't. And that wink told me what this movie thought was important. And that is that sort of like tertiary meta level of friendship that might even be with people that you can't fucking stand.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting thing there, which is that like, there's like a code of conduct that is underlying whether you're with a person and, they have problems and you don't quite get along. But there's a sort of understanding of what that code is between these two people, which is that I will look out for. I know this thing is one of the things that makes you the most insecure. So I will look out for you if that ever happens in my capacity. And I think that sort of comes back to this idea that I do like about the movie is that each of the bits in the movie does have an underlying psychological underpinning to it, which is true, which resonates, and I think, like for me, Craig eating the bar of soap, like
so uncomfortable
is so uncomfortable, but also like, I think I understand who this person is right now. I think I understand that this is a real situation and I understand who this person is what makes that scene kind of interesting is that it's not just like a weird, person eating the bar. So, and my point being, I guess, is that that's what I actually quite like about Tim Robinson's comedy in I Think You Should Leave. And Detroiters as well, is like there's an underlying sense that like while this is as absurd as it can possibly be, there's something about this that is actually rings true. Now, I still kind of, for the most part, didn't feel a sort of strong affiliation for the connective tissue of this movie beyond sort of the bits. Like Kate Mara's character, I think, was really interesting in that she seems to accept him no matter what, even when he is awful, but also may be insensitive to his insecurities as well, like with the firefighters. There's something really interesting, by the way, that I picked up on the sort of second or third time that we were in the basement when he's playing the drums, because the drums are so cool. You don't really see green drums, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Going for a 70s vibe.
Yeah, was that there are photos on the wall of Hillary Clinton in the, or it might have been Barack Obama in the war room.
Oh no!
And like it's just really oddly placed, and there is conversations about 9/11 a few times in this movie as well, and the people that she has befriended are firefighters. And I was like, I wonder how we can unpack this thread if there's something here. But I also was like, but I also think it's probably just a funny runner that they thought was amusing.
Yeah, like the Marvel thing.
Yeah, like the Marvel thing. Exactly.
Well, it's funny. It actually calling everything a Marvel, a superhero is a Marvel. We got to go see the new Marvel.
I wonder if it was because they couldn't refer to Marvel movies, but then they do refer specifically to Marvel characters.
Yeah, I don't think it was a legal thing.
Because Paul Rudd's in it.
I know. Well,
and Kate Mara was once a Fantastic Four.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think that's really fun because it's another way to poke fun at another substitution in our connected, always online world for legitimate friendships that let me be clear, can blossom into those, but often people use them as things instead of is fandoms. So the fact that Marvel, even though it's had a few misses as it goes, is still like one of the biggest pop culture things that like most people would understand.
Yeah.
Like if you say like the Avengers movie, chances are most people that you're talking about a movie have seen or heard of the Avengers.
Yeah.
So using a Marvel as a stand-in for a fluff kind of thing that men interact about and with.
Yeah.
I felt was a good use of it.
Not least of which it's starring Ant-Man.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I liked that it sort of used that as a shorthand for the small bits and ways that men do connect is through like either a piece of media or wanting to be in a band.
Or singing My Boo. Which that to me was the funniest bit in the movie.
Yeah.
When it was like, at night, I think of you. I want to be your lady too.
Yeah.
If you can. I was really in that moment. I was like,
sure.
And I love that they all kind of acapellaed it and like really got into it. I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
This is my moment. I was like,
well, I'm glad you had it. Mine was licking the frog. Mine was at the Dream Subway.
Yeah.
The Subway sandwich shop. I think that was my favorite joke was building up this big high thing. And then it's just literally like two pieces of his life, one of which we've never seen. And it's just Paul Rudd, like not even getting the sandwich, just ordering the sandwich and then waking up.
And he didn't even get to eat the sandwich.
Yeah, which is so fucking fun.
I did like this movie. I like that, this is a new filmmaker, Andrew G. Young as well. I thought it was really good. I think Tim Robinson's particular talents would be really, again, like Adam Sandler with Paul Thomas Anderson, which I think they've only done one film together. But it was a real tap into, hey, this person's got something interesting, and this is a filmmaker with a really interesting story to tell with that person. I wondered about like Tim Robinson and Yorgos Lanthimos together, and I
think here's the thing.
Yeah,
I actually don't know if it would work. I think tonally it fits, but from again the minimal that I've seen Tim Robinson, he's got a real Mr. Bean quality to him. In the sense of he'll do a joke, and it's not that he can't be a dramatic actor or can't do something, but every time it's punctuated with a weird face or an action.
Yeah.
And that seems to be in everything that I've experienced him in, even though, again, my pull is small. Email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com if I'm wrong here. Whereas, like, with a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, I think you can't do that. Like, that can't be a constant. I think the thing with those movies is nothing is a bit.
No, but I guess my point is,
and this guy deals in bits.
He deals in bits, but my point is, I think someone like Yorgos Lanthimos would be a really good fit for channeling what Tim Robinson does.
If Tim Robinson was interested in that, yes, and absolutely.
In the same way that like Paul Thomas Anderson like watched Happy Gilmore and said, I think there's something interesting here.
Sure.
And he still loves the comedy.
Hopefully he does the same thing for Happy Gilmore too.
Oh, you think that P.T. Anderson? Well, his reviews for One Battle After the Another came out last night, and they are through the roof.
Really?
Yeah. Like my expectations on a Paul Thomas, and I was like really annoyed by this because my expectations for every P.T. Anderson movie is always through the roof. But the fact that movie has come out with like, I think David Ehrlich called it the best film. Oh my God, I hate doing this because now the expectations are so high. And this is straight for your fault, David Ehrlich. But David Ehrlich said, this is the best film I've seen since I started being a critic.
Whoa. That movie, I don't want to tangent too much, but that movie has had like 3 different trailers that make it seem like 3 different movies.
And that's what P.T. Anderson does.
Yeah. That's kind of the MO.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this, and I think it's a really fascinating look. To me, it's less of a fascinating look at male friendships. I think there are more interesting films about that, but it's a fascinating look of the transition point for Tim Robinson's career. That's what I really kind of got out of this, is like, I really like this guy on TV. I think this is an interesting movie. I'm curious where he goes from here, kind of thing. And then we're going to tee this up for next week, for the episode we're about to record immediately after this.
But you don't get for a week.
Yeah. Is that the sort of like pinball effect I had on watching this movie right next to Sorry Baby, Eva Victor film that we will be discussing next week, was so profound in terms of like an understanding of the distinction between male friendships and female friendships, or just like even having just a piece of observational media to kind of like think about that.
Yep.
I was so struck by watching these 2 movies back to back. And I'm really excited to actually like continue this conversation with Sorry Baby, which is another A24 movie.
We're setting them up this week. Like I said, setting it up. Next week, we knock them down.
Yeah.
I'll just say my final thing about friendship as well. I did connect with the notes of sort of male friendship in the entire movie. The comedy was super funny and also off-putting. I totally get what you were saying, Sheer. Like, I think people's theater going experiences, seeing this in the theater, could either be
incredible.
It could be crickets or incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and I think weirdly enough, if you went alone, I think it could be incredible. And if you went with the right person, I think it could be incredible. Whereas,
if you went with your best friend, Ben.
Yeah, well, or at the very least, someone who you have that understanding, that winking nod that Paul Rudd gives Tim Robinson at the end of the movie. I think that's the optimal person you should go with. Your best frenemy.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's very fun. I was not what I was expecting. It feels like I didn't give it a glowing review, I did really enjoy my time with it. It's also like an hour 43 minutes. It's not like asking that much of you. So I think it is a good treatise on the follies of male friendships in our later years, and also a bunch of fun skits that sort of keep hammering that home.
Write us in at Only Movie Podcast and tell us about your friends. I like where this conversation began with in terms of like exploring our friends, because it like kind of gave me like a little bit of a sort of list of like, oh, where do my friends sit in this spectrum? And I,
sure.
And I hadn't really thought about that before, but it is nice to have people in your life. I definitely agree with you that question mark around what happens to men in their capacity to maintain friendships through their life is really interesting. And if you have friends, like here's a fun story for you. I've got 2 friends in my life who've made it a real point, and I have found this incredibly difficult to do and reciprocate. But I've got 2 friends in my life who have gone out of their way to, every time we hang up the phone, say, I love you.
Okay.
Like they say, I love you at the end of every phone call. And I've started doing it recently, but man, that was such a huge hump for me to get over.
Sure.
But what I'm really genuinely appreciative of both those people is like what I feel about it is like they really valued my friendship to the point where they were like, I'm going to go outside of like the sort of masculine trait of us just hanging up the phone and grunting a couple of times or something like that to really like do something out of the ordinary. Well, what I think is out of the ordinary. And I find it, and I'm really touched by that. And I'm really touched by the fact that they did that. And I want to do it for other people, but I still feel awkward. It's like, it's a me thing.
There's very few people, male friends I do that with, but they exist. Yeah. And it's honestly, again, because we're so fucked up.
Yeah.
It's a thing that I have found that the people I've gotten there with.
Yeah.
It has started as a joke.
Yeah.
Well, and then, but I'm saying this is for me.
Yeah.
It has started as a joke.
Yeah.
And then but it's not a joke. And now it's not treated as a joke. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
there's a way to get around. Like, I think there is, weirdly, and maybe this goes back to the treatise of this movie, there's a lot of safety in poking fun at an uncomfortable situation to help you come to terms with it.
Yeah.
And I think this movie, while I don't think the message is punchy enough to break through containment for people that are just looking for a really funny thing, I feel like the cinephiles and the critics and the people in our sort of circles in that part of our life, this is a rich movie to dig that from. It's just not one that's inviting. I feel like every person who's just going to watch a good movie on a Friday night, a comedy about, Tim Robbins and doing something weird, will necessarily glom onto.
Yeah, I guess I brought that up because I am acknowledging how I would find it difficult to initiate that, and two people did with me, and I'm like, I wish I had the courage to kind of do that with other people.
No, I got that.
And so what I want you to do, right, if you're going to email us in, tell us if you got a friend that a male, if this is particularly the guys, but women can do this as well, that you say I love you to. You know, like tell us about that friendship that brings out that emotion. Like, I do have really strong feelings about my friends, and it's fun to think about them as particularly as you get older. So just write us in and tell us about your friends. And here's the thing. We don't have to read it out. If you don't want us to read it out.
Let us know if you don't want us to read it out. We won't read it out.
If you've ever seen the movie In the Mood for Love, where they whisper secrets into a wall at the for the movie.
Are we the wall?
We could be the wall. We can be the wall where we won't. It would just be nice to hear it, but we don't have to share it if you don't want us to share it. And I think it's a really interesting thing.
Okay. Well, there you go, everybody. This has been the only podcast about the film Friendship. Shahir, when you're not telling me you love me, where can folks find you?
You can find me awkwardly, like mumbling the words out, I like you a lot, on my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA.com. Matt, when you are breaking down all the boundaries of male friendship and declaring that no, we are going to hug at the end of this episode, where can people find you?
You can find me looking Shahir directly in the eyes and telling him that I love him over at my website, Extra Credits and Extra History, over on YouTube. You can also, what else am I doing? I think that's it for now. I think maybe by the time this comes out, God, I want to talk about that secret project I did, but I can't yet.
Oh, no.
Sometime in September.
You could write to the wall.
I'll write in.
You're right to the wall.
Okay. All right. I'm liking this.
We have the In the Mood for Love wall, where you can write your thoughts and we will not share them with anyone.
Great. Let us be your unpaid therapist. No, I don't want to do that. It's just the nice thing that Shahir said is the good version of that. Anyway, next week, please tune in for the double feature, The Flip Side, the other side of this coin. Otherwise known as The Flip Side.
It's flipped so many times.
Conversation for Sorry, Baby. And until then, we will talk at you next week.
Bye.
Bye.